Hi everyone, welcome to Thursday night and My Baby Experts. We are trying something a little new here tonight and I'm so happy to be with all of you. Hold on while I check my video and make sure that we are good. It's telling me there's an error, so hopefully you guys can see me. You're watching it live? Okay. I don't know what I'm doing here, but it's not working. Anyway, I can see you guys in the chat room right here, so I'm just thrilled to be with all of you. My name is Shari Criso, for those of you guys who don't know me, and this is our weekly live web TV show, and I'm going to just let everybody jump in. Tonight is episode 115 of the My Baby Expert Show that we have been doing for, oh my goodness, since 2010. So we're going on 7 years now of actually broadcasting live to all you moms and dads out there. And we've just done every single topic you can imagine. And when I was thinking about what topic to do tonight, the topic that came to mind, since it is National UV Safety Month, and yes, that is a thing, UV National Safety Month, and that is the month of July. And so I figured let's do a show where we could talk about everything having to do with your baby's summer health, you know, to keep your baby healthy during the summer. And that includes everything from sun exposure, sunscreens, swimming, eye protection, and we're going to go over so much of that and more tonight. Let me just go ahead and pull this up because I want to make sure everybody's coming in okay. We're doing something a little bit different, and it seems like, Joe, are we having trouble with the video? Or are we good? Are you okay? So you guys, just let me know that you're not having trouble with the video, that you can see me, that you guys are jumping in. Yeah, you can see. Can you see me clearly? I'm having trouble over here on my video, so I want to make sure that, oh, I see it now. Okay, fantastic. All right, we're good. We're good. Excellent. Okay. So I won't be able to see your hearts tonight, so I want to make sure that you're all giving lots and lots of hearts, and Joe will just let me know that there's hearts going across the screen because it's one of the things that we love to see. And I'm going to just hear from Joe that you're doing that. So tonight, like I said, is summer health and your baby, which is very important, especially right now in these the months that are so warm and hot, and we're have all this outdoor activity. We all are at the beach, we're at barbecues, we're in the sun, we're enjoying ourselves, and at the same time, we want to be out with our babies and we want to be as safe as possible to keep ourselves healthy. So I just wanted to. For those of you guys, I want to know who's new tonight because we have a lot of new people. Every week there are new people joining our stream from all over the world. Our Facebook page is growing like crazy, like I tell you every single week, but we are about to hit 80,000 followers. Woohoo, very exciting. So I'm excited to see that happening. And so I'd love to hear from anybody who's new. All you have to do is type in "I'm new" because I am loving that. And we always love to welcome new parents into our community. It's an awesome community and so much great information. So I just love seeing everybody from all over the world. Tonight we also, as always, have an amazing prize, an amazing sponsor, and that is one of our favorites. It's Love to Dream, and those are the developers of the amazing Swaddle Up swaddling blankets. So many of you guys have that. I know you do. I have one right here. This is the Swaddle Up. It's like this baby's sleeping because that's what they do with the Swaddle Up. They sleep a lot better. Their hands are up, and so this is the Swaddle Up blanket, and we have an amazing prize for you guys tonight. The generous people at Love to Dream are offering a full package of all the Love to Dream products for one lucky winner. We'll get the Swaddle Up, the 50/50, the Inventa, and the Snuggle. So there's going to be the Nuzzle. So everything's going to be given to one person. You'll get to pick your sizes, and you'll also get to pick what your colors you want to. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little bit about that in a little while. I have a little video to play for you so you guys can all become familiar. And I'm going to try one more time on my video because I cannot see. Let me go into Facebook directly. Hold on, everybody. Hold on. Just bear with me. I promise we're going to get on with the show. but I need to see this. So give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Let me see. Okay, there I am. There I am. I'm there. I see it. Okay, can I hit play? Huh. You're telling me it's playing, right, Joe? Oh, there it is. Okay, fantastic. All right, good. So let's get some hearts going across the screen so that I know that I can see your hearts, because you know how much I love to see all the love going across the screen. And I know there's a little delay, but go ahead and let some hearts fly. All right, and while we're doing that, I want to introduce my very special guest for tonight, a very dear friend of mine, an old friend of mine at this point, we have known each other for quite a while. She has been a guest on our show so many times. Oh, I see your hearts. Okay, great. So she's been a guest on our show for many years, and also over the past few months, we've been covering so many of the topics in her amazing book. And that is Dr. Susan Marketl. She's the author of What Your Pediatrician Doesn't Know Can Hurt Your Child. And she just has such an amazing perspective on so many aspects of childcare from a medical perspective, but really in a very different way than I hear from most doctors, most pediatricians. And it's what I love so much about listening to Dr. Marketl, Dr. Susan talk, and having her here to talk to all of you. So without further ado, let me go ahead and bring on Dr. Susan. And everybody bear with me because I'm working on a new platform tonight, so I'm trying to manage the technology as well. So there we go. Oh, I did it. Hi, Dr. Susan. You're on with us now.
Hi.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Wonderful. And it looks so nice, too. I'm looking at it here on Facebook, and you can really see both of us, and I just love it. And we have so much important stuff to talk about tonight, so I wanted them to get the full experience.
Great. Well,
you're there. Okay, awesome. So let me just say one thing before Dr. Susan, I introduce you fully. Dr. Susan is in France, and this is such commitment that she has to all of you that she wakes up in the middle of the night to come do this live stream, and you look so amazing for the middle of the night. So let's all say thank you, Dr. Susan, for getting up in the middle of the night to be so generous with her time. And lots of hearts for Dr. Susan.
okay.
Okay, so let's just start with, can you, I'm going to actually pull up an image of the book. This is Dr. Susan's book, and can you just give us a little bit of your background and just tell us what you've been doing all these years and how you got to be doing this and how the book came to be?
Okay. Well, I am an American trained physician, board certified pediatrician, of course, and I always felt a little bit fish out of water, swimming against the tide as a pediatrician, learning how to be a pediatrician, because I felt that the traditional Western medical model was very disease oriented, and I tend to be more health oriented, to support health and to promote health. But in general, the training of physicians is to kind of wait for disaster and then react once the alarm goes off. And frankly, sometimes the disaster is caused by the medical profession. We can talk about that a little bit more, but yeah. It's an issue where the medical profession creates situations which then have to be addressed in a medical way. And so the whole thing tends to be a little bit backwards. And my approach is that if we rely more on nature and accept and revel in nature's ability to heal and to keep our children's bodies and spirits healthy, then we don't have to then go into the drugstore and grab every possible thing for cough, for cold, for pain, and thereby teach children that there's a pill for everything. Yeah. So my approach has always been to step back and to say that children come into this world ready to learn and love and play, and sometimes we do things to negate that. And so I eventually, because of all of my ideas and feeling that my practice, when I had my own office, was women who understood my ideas, but I'm in a small geographic area. When I have an office, I can't treat people from all over the country or all over the world. And women would call me from, let's say, a different state and say, oh, I know about you. I heard about you. Do you know another doctor near me that's like you? And I would say, I don't really know any other pediatricians like me. So then the mother would say, I wish I had a pediatrician like you. What I'm leading up to is that when I decided to write the book, the publisher asked me, what should we title the book? And you'll see, of course, you know what the final answer was, but I said, well, how about, I wish I had a pediatrician like you. He didn't like that. He's self-serving. And the thing is, the reason the publisher came up with the title, which is, I admit, it's a little provocative and sounds a little bit negative, but I said that, I don't want it to come across as being negative. And he said, well, first of all, it's true that sometimes pediatricians do things that end up being harmful. And second of all, there are so many parenting books. When a mother goes into Barnes and Noble or looks on Amazon, whatever, there are so many choices that he wanted to have a title that would grab the mother and say, oh, this looks interesting. I wonder what's in this. Your pediatrician doesn't know. And that's how the book came about. It took me 4 years to write it. And I talk about everything related to children's health and well-being. In other words, physical issues, emotional issues, behavior, communication, and so I think it's comprehensive. And yeah. So I appreciate Shari for always supporting the book and promoting it on my behalf.
Thank you so much. And what I love about it is that it's just everything I believe in. And like you said, there was so many moms in your practice who were on the same page as you, had the same mindset about it. And there are so many moms out there who really can't find this information or find a pediatrician who can actually verbalize what they feel already themselves. And that's what you've done with this book, and which is why, I love you, but what I love is the book really gets that information into moms and dads' hands so that they can build that confidence and they can reassure themselves that their instincts are right and that they can follow their own instincts.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That's totally right. Follow your instincts. No one is better prepared to be a parent of your child than you, the parent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Joe posted the link. So if anybody wants a copy of the book, it's on Amazon and he posted it there. I'm going to go ahead and pull it down for a moment and then split the screen here again with me and Dr. Susan. We're going to get right into it because there's quite a bit to talk about. And because it is summer, we felt that it would be really important, sun and vitamin D and sunscreens and all these things are one of the biggest questions that comes in when it comes to the summer months and really all year round, the whole issue of vitamin D. So let's go to the first question. And the question came in from Misty. Misty had a few questions, but we're going to go ahead and answer her first one. And then Misty said, are most baby vitamin D drops comparable? Would it be better for me to take the 6,400 international units versus giving her 400 international units daily? And when I think of that, I'd like to, before we get into the dosages of vitamin D, why don't we talk a little bit about vitamin D in general? Because it's a question. Moms are going into their pediatricians' offices. They're being told to give vitamin D supplementation. What is the story with vitamin D?
Okay, do you want me to start answering?
Yeah, go right ahead, because what I want to talk about is how that relates to summertime.
Okay, well, the idea, the question, I appreciate the questioner very much, the person who submitted the question, but my whole point of view is contrary to the concept of giving vitamin D by mouth. because vitamin D is not supplied in a natural state by eating or drinking, in this case by artificially giving drops. Because the way that our bodies were meant to get vitamin D, the natural source of vitamin D is the sunlight. When we go out in the sun actually converts some substance that's up close to the surface of the skin into vitamin D. That's how nature meant for us to get vitamin D, and therefore how to have all the benefits of vitamin D, including strong bones, which you're all aware of, but many, many other important contributions to health and well-being of vitamin D. So this is one of the, in fact, it's a very good example of what I was saying when I was introducing myself and my book, in the sense that the medical profession has created a deficiency in vitamin D. It's not nature that's created a deficiency. Nature supplies vitamin D every time anybody goes outside. There's the vitamin D. However, the medical profession has created a tremendous fear of the sun, the most healthy in every way source of life. The medical profession has created this fear, which frankly the medical profession is often based on fear. Don't go out in the sun. If you do go out in the sun, wear sunscreen. If you do go out in the sun, cover up. Babies should not be exposed. Children should not be exposed unless they're totally covered with sunscreen. Make sure you keep covering the child. And so then in 2009, a study was done, and it showed that 70% of children in the United States are vitamin D deficient. Again, we're basing it on the advice that has been given to avoid exposure to the sun. And so the medical profession's answer was that now all children in the United States are told, starting from newborn, that the parent should give vitamin D supplements. And it's completely backwards. And so my advice really doesn't have anything to do with any oral dosages of vitamin D. It's a very small amount, and we can go into it later if you want, but the amount of sunlight that's required is minimal in order to have adequate vitamin D. It's basically on average a few minutes a day, and not even with your whole body or with the child's whole body, but just the arms or the legs or the face, just a few minutes a day on average. It could be 15 minutes every other week, something like that. And that's enough vitamin D. The child doesn't need supplements, and therefore there's no danger of giving too much, because you can't give too much vitamin D if you're getting it from natural sunlight, because the body always regulates it. But you could overdose on vitamin D if you're concerned, the doctor said I have to give more, and then the child could actually have a toxic amount. So that's a long answer to a short question that I didn't even answer, in terms of I didn't answer the number of.
It's actually a great answer. It's a great answer because, I think the perception, first of all, the explanation, vitamin D, like you were saying, it's a hormone. It's not a vitamin. It was represented or mislabeled. Back, I think I read 1922 was mislabeled as a vitamin versus a hormone that our body creates. And I think just like everything else, we forget that our body has this amazing ability to create what we need. And we are dependent on the sun, as we all know, for so many things, but specifically in this particular case, we are dependent on the sun for life itself, directly, not just indirectly, but directly. And vitamin D has so many implications when it comes to your short-term health, to your long-term health, especially during pregnancy, and but all the time, it's been linked so much just to like bone health and the deficiency which causes rickets, and that's where they always go with it. But there's so many other things that it impacts, from autoimmune conditions to heart disease, to cancer, to osteoporosis. There's so much that vitamin D deficiencies, and especially chronic long-term deficiency throughout your life, can contribute to. I know for me, just, by having enough vitamin D during the year, I am able to usually not get sick, not get colds, not get flus. It's one of the best ways to prevent all those things, is to make sure that your vitamin D levels are in optimal range.
That's right. And just to mention about throughout the year, you need not be in the sun in months when there's a little sun or when it's cold outside, because vitamin D is fat soluble and it's stored in the liver. So if you get the sun some months of the year, but not the other months, it's perfectly fine. It doesn't matter. You don't have to worry about it in the winter if you've been out in the sun in the spring and the summer.
Yeah, such a good point, because people say, well, I don't get enough sun, only those few months in the summer, but it is stored. The thing that we need to realize is that with all that being said, there's still like a chronic deficiency going on in our country among people not getting enough vitamin D, but that's more because they're not getting the sun exposure that they should be getting. Obviously we can go over it in a little bit about how much vitamin D, if you're really not getting any sun at all, how much vitamin D you would need to take, and making sure those levels are optimal during pregnancy, because that vitamin D is actually being passed to the fetus during pregnancy to build up the baby stores. Plus, it does prevent different issues during pregnancy, like gestational diabetes. Low vitamin D can lead to preterm delivery, preeclampsia, higher C-section rates, more infections. All those things can happen when your vitamin D levels are low. And so it's not that we're saying it's not an issue. We're saying there's another way to deal with this other than just taking lots of supplementation. And like I'm just going to re-emphasize one more time in case anybody missed that. Vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, which means that when you take it orally in doses that would actually you'd need to take to get your vitamin D levels to the optimal range, are in high doses that you could overdose with, which means you'd have to keep repeating your blood work to make sure that you're in the right range. When you get your vitamin D from sun exposure, your body will regulate that and you'll never overdose. Like, it will stop at a certain point. So it's just, of course, the body's so smart, would not have that happen. It's only when you're doing it artificially. And especially with baby. Especially with a baby, when you're giving drops to the baby. And where did this come from? It was just like across the board, they just decided to recommend it to every baby, vitamin D. And especially with breastfed babies, somehow they've made this big thing about breastfed babies are the ones that are at the most risk because somehow breast milk is deficient in vitamin D. Talk a little bit about that, about the vitamin D that's in breast milk.
As with many things, the amounts of the particular ingredient that we're talking about in any conversation, the amount in the breast milk is proportionately low to what would be, let's say, added to formula to make it okay. But the absorption from breast milk is so much more that we don't need very much. There is no deficiency. After all, breast milk is the golden standard by which we must measure any nutrition given to a baby. And yes, the amount of vitamin D in breast milk, again, it's not a large amount, but it's very highly absorbed. This is how nature has arranged it. So there's enough vitamin D in breast milk that, breast milk is the perfect food. It's not anything that can be manufactured. It's impossible. There's no way that a factory can take milk, which is usually from a cow, which is perfect for baby calves, and change it and add to it and detract and subtract from it and move things around molecularly to make it into breast milk. It just can't be done. So what I'm saying is that we already have the perfect food. It's not deficient. But women who are breastfeeding, they're made to. There's a subtle there's a subtle suggestion that the breast milk is not perfect, and only the medical profession can make it perfect. It's the same thing with many things that women from the time that they give birth are given the impression that there's a deficiency. Babies are given vitamin K injection at birth when they don't need it because the breast milk has enough for a newborn. But the baby, the first experience of a newborn in the United States is to get a painful intramuscular injection of vitamin K. But we have evolved thus far without injections of vitamin K, without giving babies drops of vitamin D. And so I want parents to feel more comfortable about it's better if it's natural. It's better if we don't interfere with Mother Nature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's so great. Perfect. It's really perfect. Let's move on to, sun exposure, because the question that came in was, let's see, I have the question here. This question came from Lauren, and she said, how much sun exposure is required daily for little ones? It's been in the triple digits here, and it's way too hot for my 7-week-old to be out to old baby. We spend plenty of time near the windows. Is indirect light sufficient enough? And before we answer her question, one of the questions that was in the chat room, and I believe this was Misty also, was saying, what's the minimum amount of sun exposure? You started to talk about how much time people need to be in the sun to get that adequate vitamin D. I'd love to go over that a little.
Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, go ahead and answer. You were talking about, how much of their body needs to be exposed and for how long.
I know. So I actually have the page on my book that has that, because otherwise it would be hard for me to spontaneous answer. So I'll just read it. A normal and easy way for you and your child's skin to soak up adequate levels of vitamin D is to spend a little time in the sun. How long? The factors that affect ultraviolet radiation exposure, the season, your geographic latitude, the time of the day, how much cloud cover, whether or not there's smog, and how much melanin is in the skin. In other words, how dark your skin is or light. Those issues, those variables make it difficult to provide exact guidelines that work for everyone. But according to the National Institutes of Health, the NIH, 10 to 15 minutes of direct sunlight at twice a week on the face, arms, hands, or back. Face, arms, hands, or back, 10 to 15 minutes of sunlight is sufficient to maintain optimum serum vitamin D levels. Yep. So that's a specific answer.
That's really great. And I think that the main point here is that you're not doing too much where you're going to actually get the baby burned. There's, you can do that exposure without any kind of sunscreen, a sunburn. But a very important part that'll lead into our next point is that if that sun exposure is done with sunscreen, it will block the vitamin D from actually being produced on your skin and for your body. So this needs to be sun exposure absent of sunscreen. And I want to be clear about that because, and I don't believe that they can get that vitamin D through glass either. So it cannot be through a window. It needs to be more direct sunlight.
Yeah, I'd have to do some research into that because I know that it sounds like totally off topic, but when babies are jaundiced, which is another natural thing that the medical profession has gone big crazy about it, even though it's really totally natural for newborns to be jaundiced. And so the medical profession tends to take those babies and put them under these special lights called bilirubin lights, which is in itself horrible because it's taking the baby away from the mother. And so I would always suggest, based on research, that you can have the baby at home and near a window. But the window doesn't have to be open. It could be just a window and having the sunlight come in. That works well for the bilirubin lights. So I tend to suspect that at least some of the rays that come in through the window are sufficient for getting vitamin D. It might be decreased a little bit, but I think that it definitely is better than not getting any sunlight at all. Yeah, well, I just
for babies that are young, newborns, the first few months, remember that as long as you're getting enough sun exposure, as long as your vitamin D levels are adequate, there's going to be that vitamin D in the breast milk that is going to transfer to the baby as well. So I would say it's really important for moms to get out there and get that little bit of sun exposure to make sure that she's healthy. And to do that throughout the pregnancy, going right into breastfeeding, to pass that vitamin D along to baby in utero and then beyond.
That's good. Another thing that comes to mind about, because when we're talking about sun exposure and the mothers and fathers who are listening are thinking, sunburn, wait, I don't want my child to get sunburn. Yes, you don't want your baby to go out. You know, that I don't know if you've ever heard this expression, only mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun. And there was a rock group called Mad Dogs and Englishmen, but I'm obviously dating myself that most of the people have no idea what I'm talking about. But I don't know, it was some saying, only mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun. And so basically, yes, when it's hot in the summer, we're not advocating that you go out at noon. In fact, I would say between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m., and those are the numbers in my book, between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m., when the sun is really, really strong, you should avoid it. So there's plenty of other hours in the day that are not during those hours. And the other thing is that there is a natural... the natural ability of our bodies to screen to avoid too much sunburn is that our bodies produce melanin. That's what getting a tan is. A tan is not a bad thing. A tan is a wonderful thing. We don't want to have a child who's been in the indoors the entire winter and then go out and spend an entire day at the beach, because that child's body hasn't had the ability yet to react to the sun and start to produce the melanin, which is starting to produce the tan. Because once you have the tan, that melanin, it's a nature sunscreen. It blocks your skin from getting burned. So, what used to be considered a healthy summer tan, which it is a healthy summer tan, but now again, people are afraid of that. But that's fine. It's perfectly good to have a tan. And it just involves moderation of moderate exposure over time.
Yep, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about sunscreens. We hear so much about wearing sunscreens, wearing sunblock. There was a question that came in from Misty. She said, sunscreen versus sunblock. How often should I reapply? Which ones do I really want to use? Which ones are better? And just want to keep my little one safe from the rays. So I know that you really don't like sunscreen very much. And so go ahead and talk about that. And then I'll discuss a little bit about what to look for, because there are times where we may need to use sunscreen. We're out on the beach and, we have a little bit more prolonged exposure. But what are we looking for?
Yes. Okay. So first thing to keep in mind is that anything you put on your baby's skin is absorbed into the body, unless it's, I'm going to get into like the thick cream. I will say now that years ago, again, I keep saying things from many years ago, and a lot of the people who are listening don't have the same recollection. But the lifeguards would put the white. It's called zinc oxide. It's a thick white cream. And I just always remember going to the beach, and the lifeguards would be sitting up on that big lifeguard chair, and the nose was always covered with the white, because that is what we call a physical sunblock. It physically blocks the sun. It's like taking a piece of whatever, some kind of a cloth, and putting it on your nose. And so that is fine, because you're not using chemicals that get absorbed. But on the other hand, any chemical that you put on your skin, your baby's skin, it gets absorbed. That's why there are medicines these days that are made in patch form, patches. Oh, I'm going on a cruise. I need the patch so I don't get seasick. I want to stop smoking. I need the patch. Birth control comes in a patch form because putting things on the skin gets absorbed. Steroid. A lot of parents use steroids because it's very overused. Cortisone. And, if you put a lot of cortisone because your child has a rash, it's just like giving the baby steroid to swallow. So I'm just making a point that just the idea that, the drugstore is so full of these chemicals, these every possible style, color, SPF, baby, and waterproof, and, all this marketing for sunscreen, but basically they're marketing something that is going to get absorbed into your baby's body and into the liver and the kidneys and everything else. And so that's one of my main concerns about sunscreen, other than the fact that I don't want you to use it because in general I want your child to be exposed and have a natural ability to develop a tan. But the kind of sunscreen would be the zinc oxide, the cream, and that many sunscreens these days do have that. It's literally a physical barrier rather than the chemical that you can't see. And the good thing about it is that it doesn't get absorbed. And yes, you can see it, and the baby's skin or anybody's skin will have that white tinge to it because it's white, it's covering. But in a way, that's okay because you can see it, and so you know that it's there, as opposed to the sunscreens that are invisible. Then you keep putting it on because you can't see it, and you're just giving more and more chemicals into the body.
Yeah, absolutely. Such a good point. People don't think like these are chemicals, and when you're putting it on, you want to have the most natural thing. The white zinc. There's something that there's a difference between the different particles and the size of the particles that you can purchase, and there's different strengths or sizes of it. When it becomes very small, and they're referred to as nanoparticles, they can actually absorb into the skin more. And so just like what Dr. Susan was describing is that when you get into the higher, larger particles, they're much safer to use. You will see it, and it will cause the skin to be a little bit more white. But that is, like you said, a good thing because you know that you have it on. You can see it on your child. You're not missing spots. That was always a thing. You miss spots, and then you get a burn in that one spot where there's no coverage. When you can see a little bit of white from the zinc, it's actually a good thing. Somebody's asking in the chat room, what about preventing skin cancer? It's such a good question because all we hear is sunscreen to prevent skin cancer, yet we're seeing more skin cancer now as we've used more and more sunscreens. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the difference in the UVA and the UVB rays and the broad spectrum sunscreens and how misleading so much of this can be, where you're really putting yourself at more risk, higher SPFs and that type of thing.
Oh, do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, basically what happens is that because there are two kinds of UV ray, ultraviolet rays, the UVA and the UVB, when we're using the sunscreen, which will block the child from getting sunburn, it actually is not blocking the kind of rays that cause cancer. And so there's an increase of cancer, which is completely paradoxical, I understand, is actually an increase in cancer in the United States from using the sunscreen because we're having the children out in the sun more because of, it's all right, because the child has sunscreen, just keep applying the sunscreen, go out in the sun. And so we're exposing the child to more of the harmful UVA rays, and therefore that's why in the United States there is a tremendous scare about cancer, but it's just completely backwards. It's actually the sunscreen that has created an increased incidence of skin cancer.
It's such an interesting point. One of the things I was actually looking and reading about today was the idea that in Europe there's much higher standards about what ingredients are in the sunscreens. Actually, they have limits on how high the SPF can be reported because SPFs that are at the very high SPFs are misleading to people. They think they can be out longer. In some cases, it causes them to have more exposure to those harmful UVA rays even longer than they would have. So they're just, it's not good. But in Europe, the standards, the ingredients do have a broader spectrum coverage, which does cover more for the UVA rays, which are not visible. They don't cause sunburn, but they cause cancer. And so it makes sense now when you think about you put these sunscreens on, you can stay out longer without getting burned, but those harmful rays are still getting through over a lifetime. And so, people are asking, well, what kind of sunscreens? Do you have any brands, recommendations, things like that? I did give Joe some links to put up there from the Environmental Working Group. Information about sunscreens in general, some of the things that we're going over tonight, but it was just such a long, in-depth article that I felt like it was really good for you guys to go over and read. It talks about skin cancer and sunscreens. It talks about high SPFs. It talks about the difference between what we have here and what is in Europe. Just really good information. And then there's another link, Joe, from Healthy Child's Healthy World that is about the different recommendations that they went over for 2017. They do this every year. They go over and look at what are the worst sunscreens for children and what are the best sunscreens for children. And so it'll give you those lists. There's a link there that you can click on, and you can go through there and make sure that your sunscreen's not on the list of worst ingredients. Environmental Working Group and database there is fantastic for being able to plug in and actually put in the name of the product that you're using, from cosmetics to sunscreens to lotions and creams, diaper creams, and it'll give you a rating based on many different factors, but it's about chemical ratings and toxicity and what the harmful effects are for different ingredients. I use it all the time to check different things when parents ask me about a product or I'm looking up a product. It's the best way to look it up and really get an answer. So that's Environmental Working Group, and Joe just posted it there for all of you guys. So we're not going to go over all those details because there's a lot there and a great resource for you guys to go ahead and read. And there's more for us to go over. So I'm going to keep moving on here. Let's see.
Yeah, let me get you, Shari.
Go right ahead.
People probably have heard of vaguely the ozone layer. It has some kind of almost like a pseudoscientific or science fiction type of name to it, the ozone layer. Well, what is the ozone layer? The ozone layer is it's a sort of like a sunscreen around the Earth. It's and that's probably as simple and as best as I can explain it. But there's something in our atmosphere that actually blocks the rays, just like as if putting sunscreen on your skin. But the ozone layer around this layer of this chemical ozone, it's a form of oxygen that has always been there, has been depleted. The ozone has been depleted, and that's why we're even talking about too much sun and sunscreen. It has to do with chemicals. It has to do with pollution, and specifically, it has to do with the CFCs, the chlorofluorocarbons, which is the aerosols. Aerosols have been banned now. That's why sometimes, someone will say, "Oh, I can't use my hairspray anymore." But it's any of those aerosols that had these CFCs. It was in hairspray. Many different kinds of things that you use to spray, as opposed to just kind of spraying out a liquid, but just actually having that forceful. I'm sure you've all had experience of using the sprays until they were banned. They're
not banned here.
They're not banned here? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, I know. I mean, as a physician, I know that the asthma, the asthma nebulizers, the handheld, I have to take a puff of my asthma. It was banned there. I mean, it was always a CFC type of, spray in your mouth and breathe it and, take a puff like that. and that has been banned since I think 2009. And
So you're talking about the aerosols of sunscreen aerosols.
I'm talking about any aerosol has been banned, but apparently that's not correct. But I mean, I thought that was the case, that now if you go to the drugstore, I would assume that, I thought that you can no longer buy, for instance, hairspray. That's a good example that I can think of. Women would and I thought that
maybe in Europe, but here you can buy aerosols and you can buy sunscreen aerosols, and it's one of the things that was on my list as far as recommending against when it comes to sunscreens, because of the inhalation aspect of it. For the ozone in the environment, just sunscreen aerosols for children and inhaling those ingredients. Yeah.
Well, yeah, my mistake, because when the aerosol ingredients, the chlorofluorocarbons, CFC, when the ingredients rise up to the ozone layer, they actually literally destroy the ozone layer. Chemically, it breaks apart the ozone, and now there are holes in the ozone. And that's why there's a problem. I mean, again, it goes back to, our modern life, our industrial life, our, developed nations where we have all of these things. It has created some health problems that then make us makes us not able to do the things that we would have done naturally, which I spoke to, I was talking to Shari about this the other day, just in terms of that whole idea that with the fish, how healthy fish is, that fish is a very healthy thing to eat, except because of the industrial revolution and the coal mining and industrial coal use and secreting the byproducts of the coal into the water, that fish, now we have to worry about eating something that should be so healthy, but it's not, because of changes, sort of man-made changes that have disrupted our environment and our ability to just live a natural lifestyle. So I'm using the fish as another example of the ozone. It's the whole reason, really, that we're even talking about this, is because of our changes, how we haven't respected the environment.
Absolutely. Amen to all of that. I totally agree with you. And, it's unfortunate that we've affected so much in our environment, and it is the reason why we even have to have these conversations. I'm going to keep going because I know there's still more questions here, and we're getting to the end, but I want to show a little video. We still have our sponsor, Love to Dream, that will has all the amazing swaddle up blankets, the 50/50s. We have an amazing prize tonight. If you want to win the prize tonight, you just need to love or like this post, and then just comment here, which I've seen a bunch of you doing, telling me what you love about the Love to Dream products and why you want one and why you need one. I actually want to show their video and just test my broadcasting skills here and see if I can actually do this. So everybody hold on. I'm going to play a little cute video that will hopefully, let's see. Okay. I think I'm going to be able to do it. Let's try it. Okay. I'm so proud of myself for that. Okay, that's the Love to Dream. And for anybody who wants to win one of those, you just have to like or love this post tonight, comment here. We'll be picking a winner, and that winner is going to get an entire package. It's like a lifetime supply of Love to Dream products that can take your child from birth all the way till 3 years and up, with their amazing sleep sacks and everything else. So fantastic. I want to move on to some other questions here that came in. One came in from Misty. The question was about any recommendations for sunglasses that her child may actually want to keep on. And here's a really cute picture that I found of a baby with sunglasses on. And thing to remember about the sun is that it's not only affecting the skin, it's not only impacting, the sun can have damaging effects on the eyes. And so one of the things that you want to do is not only have your baby wear a hat, which is going to prevent that and help protect the sun from direct exposure into the eyes, but also these baby sunglasses that they make. Get your child used to it early on. Long-term effects from exposure to sun in the eyes from very early on can have long-term damage on the baby, on the child, on that person later on in life. And so you want to get our children used to sunglasses, ones that are going to be comfortable for the babies, ones that have the straps. I love the ones with straps, so it actually holds it on the baby's face. And starting them early is really, really going to be the key, because like anything else, if they're not used to it, they're not going to want to wear it. Ways to help that is to wear them yourself. You go out in the sun, put them on, protect your own eyes. Your baby will see you doing it. They want to copy what you're doing, and make sure it's something comfortable. Try using it or like putting it on them when they're out in the direct sunlight so they can feel the difference and the comfort. It actually keeps the child more comfortable to have that blocking of the sun. And also remember that you want to get a good quality, just like we were talking about quality of sunscreens, you want to have good quality, complete broad spectrum coverage. Make sure that you're buying something that has the UVB, the UVA block in the sunglasses itself. It doesn't matter that they're darker, and that's something that people think that because it's darker, somehow it's going to have more coverage for the eyes, and it can actually be more damaging. If they're just dark without the right blockage, it can actually cause the pupils to dilate more. And so that was something interesting that I read about today, was just, darker sunglasses without the proper protection can actually be more harmful to your child's eyes, and I would assume to yourself as well. People were asking me about different brands. I don't know that much about the different brands. From the minimal research that I did, I found two that I thought were really good. They had really good reviews and really good, not just reviews, but approvals from different organizations that look at specific safety concerns. And one of them was the baby bands, and the other was the Babyators, two different ones. The baby bands were the ones that have, and I know I used to sell them in my store, they have the strap. And so they're very comfortable. Babies can use them from a very, very early age. So that was the sunglasses. And again, getting them to use it early is probably the key. And if make sure that one other thing too is make sure that the glasses don't have any scratches on them. Okay, so scratch resistant ones are best. When there's scratches, babies have to work harder to see, can cause headaches and other problems. So you want to just look through them yourself, make sure there's no scratches or they're not chewing on them or anything like that. All right, so there we go for sunscreen. I'm trying to answer your questions because I know a lot of different questions came in. Another question was about swimming with your baby. And, that came in from Geraldine, and she said she has a 2-month-old. When is it safe to take the baby inside the pool with her? Is it good for the development of babies? Water is a great thing. I have some good pictures here too. Hold on a second. I'm going to give you some pictures on water. Okay, there we go. Did I do it wrong? I did it wrong. Let's see. Where's the water? Here's the water. Okay, so babies love to be in the pool, and so swimming is a great thing. The way that I would do it is I would start them off early, slowly in the bathtub. Get your baby used to the bath water, make bath time and water. You're trying to make it a comfortable and trusting experience for your child. That means make bath time a fun experience, allow the water to run on them, get them used to it in a very safe environment from day one. Get in the bath and nurse your baby in the bathtub, make it a cuddling situation, something that the baby will start to, they've come from water. So it's in them to enjoy it already. And then if you keep that going from an early age, they'll graduate to a pool and love water from there on. I would say that probably between 1 and 2 months is an okay time to start your child to go into a pool, but make sure with very young babies that the water is warm enough. A few precautions that I would take with swimming is obviously, safety, just making sure that you got a good grip on your baby. I had a pool sling, a pool carrier, that it was made of mesh so that when I went into the pool, I could actually wear my baby in the pool. And that just made me feel more comfortable to be able to keep a good grip on the baby. But other things to keep in mind when it comes to the pools is, one is the temperature. The other one would be making sure that the baby is not swallowing any of the water. Pool water is for swimming. It's not for drinking. And overhydration or drinking too much water, as we already know, is not good for baby, but especially chlorinated pool water. And so that's one thing. I just make sure they're not drinking too much of it or swallowing it. And I would avoid indoor pools or pools where there's lots of chlorination and not a lot of, filter, what do you call it? Air exposure. So if you walk into a pool and you can already smell all the chemicals, I would try to avoid that. Baby skin is very porous, even more than adult. So when you're, submerging your child into a lot of chlorine, it can really have an impact. I would avoid that as well. So those are some of the basic safety tips when it comes in. Make sure you're wearing a swim diaper. Make sure that you're, checking that diaper before you get into the pool. And then try not to swim immediately after nursing because they're going to poop. And you don't want to have that kind of an accident in the pool. But early on, start off and then try some swim lessons. Babies love water, and they can actually learn how to swim pretty early on. Maybe around 6 months, a good time to start some swim lessons with the babies. There's all kinds of water baby activities and classes that you could take. And do it with your child. Your child has learned to trust you, to feel safe with you. This is not something that you just drop off a child with an instructor. Babies you get in the water with the baby and play with the baby and teach the baby how to swim. Babies are naturally good swimmers when you keep going with it. So I hope that answers your question. There's so much to cover. One more thing I'd like to talk about is just the heat exposure, because some of you live in some really, really warm, hot climates. And the question came in from Susie, is there anything I can do to keep my newborn cool in the hot Miami summer? She gets warm so easily, but we don't want to keep her cooped up inside the entire summer. And what I would say about that is, just like Dr. Susan was talking about earlier, even I would not go out in the summer in Miami in the mid-sun day or in the midday sun. So you want to obviously avoid the hottest times of the day, and that would be for anywhere. But especially if you live in a very, very hot climate, you may need to be indoors at those very hot times of the day. That doesn't mean that you couldn't get out early in the morning or later on in the afternoon to get that sunlight that you need, that we talk quite a bit about, was the sunlight and the importance of that. But make sure that your baby is dressed appropriately. Don't overdress the baby. This is for indoors as well, but especially if you're outdoors. Keep an eye on making sure the baby is staying cool and not overheating. And just use common sense. Use common sense. If the baby is looking like they're getting too hot, make it very short intervals that you're out there, and then get the baby back inside again. If you're using a carrier, make sure it's a lightweight, mesh type carrier, because although baby wearing and keeping your baby on you is awesome, and I totally advocate that, being against your body in the very warm heat can actually heat up your baby even more. So that's something to keep in mind. And lastly, I think for safety, and we went over this, I think I just recently did a blog post about this, where people are using covers for their strollers. And I want to just warn against complete coverage of the stroller to block the sun, but at the same time blocking the air. What you can create is a furnace-like environment inside that car seat or stroller when you're covering it completely with the blankets. So I really want to make sure that you are very, very diligent about making sure that there's air circulation, that the baby's not overheating. It's one of the biggest mistakes I see people do. I'll watch them out on the beach or in the pool area. They've got the entire thing covered and you're not thinking about how hot is it really getting inside that compartment where the baby is. So please be smart about that part too. What else can I tell you about overeating? Hydration. Breastfed babies do not need extra water, and actually feeding your baby water is not recommended. Breast milk, it has mostly water. It's mostly made up of water, and your body is so smart in the summer as it gets hotter, the water content actually increases in your breast milk. You want to breastfeed frequently. So keep offering the breast to the baby. Hold on, I got a great picture for that too. There we go. Okay, so there's mom breastfeeding right there on the beach. Breastfeed wherever you are, and in the summer and hot months, make sure you're offering even more breast to the baby, and also formula. If you're feeding formula, the baby actually does need to drink more formula when they're out and exposed to a lot of heat. But it will actually, you don't need any extra water, and too much water is not good for a baby. They shouldn't be getting any water other than what's in the breast milk. So there you go. That's all the information that I have about keeping yourself healthy and safe during the summer months. And I'm glad we spent so much time talking about sun, about vitamin D, about sunscreens, and the importance of the most natural way that you can keep yourself healthy, which the sun is. We've learned so much about. We're told so much that the sun is a bad thing, when the sun is what keeps us alive. It's not only helping the plants and creating the oxygen in the environment, but right here personally in our own bodies, we need that sun. One thing I think we didn't mention, and I want to talk about this because it's one of the biggest mistakes that I see with vitamin D, Dr. Susan. It washes off your body. So we talked about earlier about getting sun exposure. One of the biggest mistakes you can make is get that sun exposure and then go jump in a shower and soap yourself up and wash it all off. So it does take time for it to absorb into your skin. What I would say is that if you've been out in the sun and you're going to go take a shower, allow the water, soap up the areas that need it and let the water just run on the rest of your body, because you don't want to wash off all that nice vitamin D that your skin is producing. And it is a mistake that a lot of people do make, and then they wonder why their vitamin D levels are low, even though they're getting a lot of sun exposure. So that was something that I had in my mind as you were talking, and I forgot to mention earlier. What age should they start? Somebody said, what age should they start wearing sunglasses? As soon as you start taking them out in the sun, I would start putting sunglasses on them. So there you go. That was an hour that went very, very quickly. What do you think?
That was true.
So much great information. So much great information. Thank you again for being with us, Dr. Susan. It's always so amazing to have you with me. The information is so great. And everybody needs all of this right now. I love that we did this show right now because they can start putting it all into practice like immediately tomorrow. And for everybody, thank you for joining us for episode 115. Can you believe that? 115. And thank you to our partner, Love to Dream, for being the most amazing partner, for creating the most amazing products, and for being with us here today, and of course for the amazing prize that someone's going to win. Again, I'm going to say it one more time. If you want to win the prize, please like or love this post and comment here telling me what you love about it. Thank you, Dr. Susan. You can go to bed now.
Good night, everybody. Yeah.
Let's all give Dr. Susan some hearts and love. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. We have amazing shows lined up for the whole rest of the summer. I'm about to post the schedule for every week up until the end of August. And boy, do we have some good shows coming up. Amazing prizes and amazing speakers and experts that are going to be joining us. And then, of course, a whole month of World Breastfeeding Month coming up in August. So I love you guys all, and I hope you have a wonderful night. Stay safe in the sun and enjoy your summer. I'll see you next week. Talk to you later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.